Welcome back to the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology Podcast with Robert Glasscock. Retrograde season is among us now as we are recording this. It happens every year where a lot of the planets seem to go retrograde, and we have a question about one on your birthday.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you so much for what you do. I have a question regarding the Saturn retrograde. My 34th birthday is this Saturday, the day of the retrograde. And as a Libra rising, my sixth house of work has just been super amplified. It's been super karmatic. And I'm wondering if retrogrades that occur on someone's birthday are more important than previous retrogrades that have been experienced. It just seems more amplified than ever before. And so I was wondering if you've come across this before. Thank you so much for what you do. Many blessings.
You know, these are such great questions we get from listeners, and I can't encourage you more to make comments in the podcast, on the podcast channels, and to send us your questions. This is a great question about Saturn retrograde, turning retrograde on her birthday. And she wants to know if that's especially significant. Well, it is. The reason it is because if it is on her birthday is essentially her solar return. So it is a heightened awareness. The solar return is where the sun conjuncts its place at birth. And just like the lunar cycle that we discussed in a previous podcast, the solar cycle is the same thing. It's just a year long instead of a month. So her birthday is a new beginning and a new awareness of something. So she wants to pay attention to what house in her natal chart is Saturn turning retrograde in, because Saturn is really the structure of our lives. It rules the skeleton and the physical body. So it's the framework for everything. If we didn't have a skeleton, as I like to say, we would just be a puddle of flesh and tissue. But with the framework, we have an organizational structure. And that's what Saturn really represents. So it's meant to be taken seriously. It has a horrible reputation among some astrologers. I don't know why. I love it. But then I'm Capricorn rising, and so I'd better love it. But I call Saturn the get real planet. And here's why. If you get real with understanding everything that Saturn means in your horoscope at birth, namely, what two houses does Saturn rule? Because it rules Capricorn, and it's the old original ruler of Aquarius. So it's going to rule the house matters with those two signs on the cusp, and then the house that Saturn is in. And in her case, it's in her sixth house going retrograde. And then you begin to analyze it, but you want to get real with everything that Saturn represents. If Saturn is in Pisces in her sixth house, then she's likely to have Aquarius on her fifth and Capricorn on her fourth. So automatically, this Saturn retrograde on her fifth on her birthday is going to bring in family matters, parental matters, siblings and relatives. They're all connected with family, even home matters. So she may be thinking about making some home improvements or putting in a home office or even moving or relocating. All of that depends on a lot of other details. But in some way, she should be thinking about how to firm up the foundations of her life, which is the fourth house, and how to increase her security. And since Saturn is always, no matter what house it's in or where it is, always connected with career objectives, she may be rethinking her career vector as well. And under retrogrades, people will often begin thinking about something they wanted to do a long time ago, even as a child. Some talent that they think is impossible. Oh, I'd love to be a dancer. Oh, I'd love to be the captain of the NFL. Any dream. Well, you may not be able to actualize that literally, but if you explore that past yearning that resurfaces during the retrograde period, there will be seeds in there of something significant that you could bring into your life in the present and make permanent. The other thing that Saturn in the sixth, or the sixth house, rules, all the books talk about it, rules work and occupation, and it does. And it rules health, and it does. But I call this house the house of psychological self-integration, or not. It's the first thing I look at in a horoscope, in a natal chart, because to me, it doesn't matter where the sun, moon, and the rest of the planets are. If the sixth house is disintegrative, in other words, if it's a disturbed or conflicted sixth house, the person is going to have challenges in integrating themselves and becoming whole. So it really pays to look at the personal psychology in this house. And when Saturn, by transit, is turning retrograde in the sixth house, it's a wonderful time to face whatever frustrations exist in your life and say, okay, I don't like what's going on in this area. I don't like what's going on in that area. What can I do about this? What do I need to do to make this happier and healthier, wiser? And then begin to take realistic, practical steps. It's always Saturn, the get real planet, to correct the frustrations and relieve and resolve the frustrations. So it's a time in Saturn turning retrograde on her birthday. And if you think of the sun as a target, it's a circle with a dot in the middle, to rethink her aims in life, especially in work and career. Secondarily, this may also indicate rethinking her behaviors in terms of health. She may need better exercise, better nutrition, more attention paid to her health, and so on. Correct bad habits. If she's overweight, lose weight. If she sits around all day, get up and walk. Those kinds of simple adjustments. But to get real. And she also really may be in a period of refocusing her aims in life, the sun, on her birthday, the target. Now, if you know the transit of Saturn, 2.5 years, and you know where it is today, which is near her birthday, it's about halfway through its transit. It will enter Aries of new starts in February of 26. So astrology gives her a time frame to say, you want to re-aim your career direction? You've got as long as between now and the beginning of 2026 to do it. And Pisces itself is a transitional sign. So almost all of us, because the world is experiencing this Saturn and Pisces transit, almost all of us are in a transitional phase regarding pretty much everything. Certainly our work and occupation, but also our attitudes about living, who we spend time with, who we don't spend time with, and on and on and on. And the signal for the emergence of the new is at the beginning of 2026. So don't be impatient. Give yourself permission to revise everything and to go along with the flow. Things are passing naturally out of your life. Cycles are ending naturally out of your life. And instead of focusing on maybe what's passing, focus on what you can open your arms to that is trying to come into your life, and welcome those things. Don't be afraid to welcome these new ideas, new people, new opportunities, because they are your future. So this is a really wonderful and very important birthday for her. And with Saturn going retrograde, with any retrograde, you can always think about any reword: repair, revise, refine, revisit, return, rekindle, on and on and on. And people have, again, a negative impression of retrogrades in astrology. Oh, I don't want to take my car in to be repaired under Mercury retrograde. Are you kidding? That's the time to do it. It's not the time to buy a new car, but make repairs under retrograde. It's a great time to buy a used car, pre-owned car, or to repair health conditions, and so on. It's what it's meant for. So this is a wonderful indication for her in the birth chart. And in terms of her fifth house and her fourth house, her fifth house rules her creativity. And that can be children, literal. But it can also be a time for her to reawaken, a reword, a creative talent or goal or idea that she has had maybe under the surface for a long time. And it could absolutely involve the internet and computers, because Aquarius, the fifth house probably in this chart, rules those things. And Aquarius in the 5th house in her birth chart says she's got some sorts of original, unique talents and perspectives, creative ones, that she can capitalize on and turn into either a secondary stream of income or a primary profession. So good luck to you, and thank you again for this question.
And thank you for that great answer. And I would like to point out that we had a couple of episodes back, we did an extensive look at Neptune and Saturn transiting through Pisces. We talked about Saturn and its retrograde, and we talked about both also moving into Aries. So if you'd like an expanded version of this, you could go back to that episode if you haven't caught it. And if you'd like to do what she did and send us a message, go to funastrology.com. It's at the top, the orange button. You can leave it anonymously, and we'd love to tackle your question if we can. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology Podcast with Robert Glasscock.